Oh, it's already me? Okay.
Already used. You've got some very exciting stuff to share with us.
Oh, not exactly, but okay. So let me share the screen. Um, just tell me what you see. Sometimes I don't.
A slideshow?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And I gotta do one more screen share. Advanced. Everyone seeing the screen? Oh, the creative recreation body program.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, so I like to take this moment to share a little bit of exciting news for us. We just recently got the federal grant to combat, to end social isolation of seniors in response to COVID. And the program called the Creative Recreation Buddy Program. So I just wanted to not only introduce, but also brainstorm together. So originally I had the question of, how can we ensure that the vulnerable people such as elderly, frail seniors don't become isolated and or face further disadvantages? And how can we create a greater sense of belonging? So as you can look at the overview, the aim is to establish online buddy system to develop social connections for participants while providing guided art play workshop in a synchronous zone over Zoom. And what I mean by guided art program is that youth partners who are supervised by professional artists will coordinate weekly or bi-weekly online workshops and frequently one-on-one tailored support as a buddy. Just for example, like workshop or perhaps could be a collaborative project with seniors, ranging from creative, let's say, video letters or designing circular mandalas or to storytelling for the movement or singing in harmony, whatever would that be. So senior may receive such as like a new themed art supply box each month who works together with a youth partner or maintain and improve their well-being. The whole point is this is to power isolate seniors who can still make impactful change in the life of people around them and also promote sense of purpose and sense of belonging. So here's a timeline, and this is kind of a rapid sort of a development, but next month or two, we're going to form focus group and create a website to allow matching. And around perhaps mid-October, so the paired youth and senior will be starting sort of so-called collaborative residency for 5 months long. And then perhaps around the next March year, we'll be showcasing in celebrations. So most of the federal grant, such as this, is a 1-year cycle. That's why the timeline is like this. So why youth have to get involved? What is the benefit? Also, beyond this concern for seniors, but I also have a great hope and concern for youth as well. So I always wonder that how can we, as a community, can support young people to become a lifelong learner and form link with local communities, create change that meet the need of themselves, but also their communities. And for example, if you can look at what are the benefit, perhaps maybe you might be creating something new, or maybe gain new skill set or insight on your own work, or maybe you might be able to escape your silo, or empower other people, and finally become lifelong learner. So just think right now, what are the creative, collaborative opportunities to develop your agency are kind of emerging right now. And the skills and expertise that I'm talking about, could be anything. For example, video making, maybe someone good at podcasts, digital art, storytelling, music, singing, writing essay, blog, visual art, performing arts, puppetry, movement, including dance, culinary art, technology, computer, conversation, game cards, literally everything that we do use, hands for anything, so youth buddy and the senior sort of make a pair, and at the end of the project, at least one project would be either proposed by senior or jointly initiated would be complete. And what I mean by senior applicants are those who are living in retirement nursing homes, for most perhaps the highest risk to be not just for the COVID, but also declined cognitive skills in social circle. And those who are living alone, those who are also dwelling, community dwelling seniors. BACS also work with Weavers group in the community. Most of them are quite creative and active, yet I have noticed since this March, not all people are technologically savvy. So we continue to meet bi-monthly. However, those who are not technologically savvy, they're not be part of it. So I really do consider how can I reach out to those who can be on a sort of online presence. So here I like to take maybe 5 minutes for all of us to do a brainstorm. And before that, I'd like to introduce this. As I mentioned, how can I promote greater sense of purpose and greater sense of belonging? I'd like to introduce this Japanese concept of ikigai. I don't know how you heard of this before. Perhaps you've been seeing this diagram, like a full circle diagram coming together, and in the middle intersection of what the world needs, what you love, what you're good at, what you can be paid for, possibly appreciated for. It's called ikigai. In Japanese dictionary, it says perhaps meaning that sort of reason for being, or maybe simply the joy of living. And what I really like about this ikigai is that this wisdom, teaches us not only maximize our own self-interest, but also balancing that with the interest of others in other aspects of context that we're living right now. Environment, it's called what the world needs. For example, during this COVID, many people discovered their ikigai, right? Kind of sweet spot, balancing what world needs and what they're enjoying. For example, to start making a cloth mask for medical workers using their sewing skills is such a perfect example. So here's my ikigai, just for the sake of exercise. I always wonder what would that be my seed idea to improve my neighborhood. And I've noticed that what world needs, what I see is that I think world needs social support network. We need artists. I love to, integration of public health and everything in a space to create. That's I observe. And what I love is making new people, learning new things, good at perhaps maybe research, idea generations, and possibly appreciated for maybe volunteer or organizing. So reflecting my own journey, I really see that it was really a sort of resilience power of art and imagination and the real human connections of a collaboration and friendship developed through those exchange and interactions. So the birth of BACS, the organizations, and even development of this FLAG program with the summer interns, exactly that. So for the next 5 minutes, I want you to spend to reflect on what is your ikigai, would that be? For the sake of exercise, in the interest of tackling on the isolation of seniors and the development of buddy program, let's imagine that what world needs right now is a buddy program to prevent isolation of seniors and then foster a greater sense of belonging. So now take a sheet of paper and pen and then draw 4 circles like this one. And then start listing for the remaining circles, what you love, what you're good at, what you possibly can be possibly paid or appreciated for, and finally find your sweet spot, ikigai. And then maybe someone maybe share what you found. Okay, so what time is it? Maybe Eric, you can sort of time next 4 or 5 minutes, 3 or 4 minutes. Anyone have any questions? By all means, I'm happy to answer as well.
Wait, so are we filling in the rest of the circles in relation to the social isolation program?
Yes, yes. So what world needs, they need, it's so many different things we obviously world needs, but for the sake of exercise, we will limit, just for the sake of exercise and social isolation of seniors and maybe body program. That's what we need. But you can fill out the other circle and what kind of things that comes out. You can create your own creative body program, let's say. But what would that look like for you? Maybe another minute or two. How is everyone doing? Okay. So I'd like to give other team members more airtime, so I will just wrap this up. So, here is the last things. So yeah, so this project will be starting from the fall, and there's a couple positions available as well as the youth body volunteer as well. So by all means, feel free to contact me. So I'm gonna stop share and then let's see what people comes up. So who would you like to share what you found?
I could start. I have my really terrible web here. I don't know if you can see that. It's also super messy.
You can explain to us. Thanks.
I like planes, and I'm good at talking about planes, but the world needs connections between generations, so I thought it might be nice to maybe find someone who used to work in that area and be able to talk about stuff that we might both be interested in.
I like it. That's great. Yeah, you may create find a new, like a collaborator. You may be mentor-mentee relationship. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone like to share? There's no right or wrong. And it could be really unique and anything. Okay, since everybody's not speaking up, I will make name one.
Sorry, I'm using a different laptop today. I'm not.
Hi, Marina. Thank you.
I'm not grand, but I'm just using my dad's laptop, so it's I'm learning how to use his today. I think the biggest thing that I've noticed when I go visit my grandma is that a lot of the seniors don't feel like they're being heard or listened to, and a big concern for them is that they'll be forgotten and their stories no one will remember them. So I think that being there to listen and even record their stories and take that and make that into a bigger project would be something that they would really appreciate. So that was the main thing I was thinking about.
It's so wonderful. Yes, that's exactly what I would like to do that too. Anyone else? What would that be the overlap of your self-interest and that connections with listeners?
Asking me?
No,
no. Anyone. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Marina. That was really great idea. Yeah. Okay, how about you, Maya? You can unmute yourself.
Well, I'm not really sure if I did it properly. I didn't really come up with, like, I guess my own unique idea for a buddy system, but like for what you love, I wrote forming connections with others, and then also trying new art forms, and then sort of what you are good at and what you can be paid for, sort of similar things for me at least, or kind of communicating, learning, and organizing and things like that. And thought it might be fun to kind of try like different art forms, like, I don't know, weaving or painting or drawing or something, doing that with seniors and learning from them through that process. I was thinking that might be a fun thing to do, but yeah, I haven't like fleshed out anything.
Thank you. That sounds good. Anyone else? Let's say, how about Lucas?
Yeah, so I was trying to fill out the circles as fast as possible to show you guys it's a very bare bones sort of thing right now.
Oh,
but
love it.
Yeah, but I realized, okay, my specialty, which is writing, is sort of way off, far away from isolation where I want it to be. So I think for me, trying to find a way to bring writing sort of into the center of the Ikigai, I think, is my goal. And I do know there are a lot of sort of pen pal programs that help, connect multiple generations and people that are not, physically so close to one another. So maybe I could help facilitate that in a way that is more sort of structured than, just the regulars, you send a letter, you get a letter sort of deal. But yeah, I haven't put too much thought into this particular program, but maybe, some sort of back and forth writing exchange would be a nice way to connect people.
Exactly. I've seen something like this, not necessarily young and old, but two different disciplines, people from science, people from artists, they do form a collaborative residency and then write blog and exchange idea. I think that's really fruitful. So similar to that, I think it's really wonderful. Yeah. And then perhaps senior feels that sense of belonging, purpose as well through that, learning each other. Let's hear one more person before I hand it over to Eric. Who would that be you would like to share? Anything,
Yeah, I mean, unless anyone else wants to share, I'm happy
Go
to.
ahead. Yes.
So, I mean, what I was thinking is I really enjoy kind of like forming relationships and listening and trying to kind of, just connect with people. I love photography. I have kind of some experience in like photography, putting together like shows and stuff like that. So I thought it could be cool to do something where I guess it would be like socially distanced, but you could do like sending photos back and forth with people or doing something around photography. And it could be cool I think that would be cool to allow kind of elderly people to show how they're living, because I have no idea. I've lost all my grandparents and I haven't spent a whole lot of time with elderly people in quite some time, but I think it'd be cool if you could do like a socially distanced photo show, whether that be online or or in person. It could be cool to set something up, and then people could come through and kind of appreciate what the seniors had done. And could involve any medium of art as well. It could be kind of fun.
Yeah, I really like that. Sometimes I really like to see the, the deep wrinkle of the seniors and hands, stuff like that. And I mean, it's beautiful, the
Definitely.
history and stuff. Yeah,
There's beauty, definitely beauty in the aging, and
yeah,
there's tell stories.
definitely. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for sharing your idea. Just keep working on it. There's lots of ideas. So thank you so much. So yeah, I leave with that, and back to Eric. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a really, really cool program, and I hope all of you find your way into being a part of it. Next, I think Lucas is going to be sharing his. It's very sad, but this is his final live session for Flap 101.
Yeah, this is the final live session. It was really great looking through all your works, especially the last thing you guys did for Module 5. The things you guys wrote were awesome. Like, they were really, really great. I was kind of proud to see some, the techniques that I talked about actually, really put into use in your writing exercise. So I was just overwhelmed by that. Really happy to see that. Today, we got a few sort of technical little things to go over. So first, I want to show you sort of a process from nothing to something. Sort of give you a quick overview of how a piece that you work on goes from just an idea into publication. And then we'll talk about our sort of finished style guide, just so you guys have that. And then we'll talk about how not to plagiarize. And yeah, so first we'll talk about, so how does a piece sort of go from nothing to something, right? I thought it'd be best to just show you guys sort of a visual example of something, of one of the pieces that I wrote for a magazine, and how that sort of shakes out, right? So just give me a quick nod if you can see this. All right, cool. So this is just an editor at this magazine, and she sort of knew that she'd come across one of my downtown East Side pieces about the Vancouver neighborhood, and she was like, maybe he'd be interested in a piece about this group right here. So this group is the Downtown East Side SRO Collaborative. What they do is they fight on behalf of people living in poor housing conditions. And so Tara, the editor, Tara Michelle, sorry, she wanted just a short feature about this group, where this group came from, and sort of the work they do, right? So she hits me up with an email being like, hey, this is a piece that I'd kind of be interested in having for this magazine. Are you interested in writing it? And I say, yeah, of course. And then now I'm attached to this piece, okay? Next thing I do is I go to the About page, find their email, and now I have their phone number. And I email Wendy, who is the founder of this organization. I'm a journalist with this magazine. Can I write a profile about your organization? And then, so she's like, yeah, sure. I'd be down for an interview. And then what she does is she ghosts me, and I can't get contact. Like, I try again and again, and she doesn't respond. And sometimes this happens. It's no big deal. I ended up having to cold call her. But so yeah, I call her, we do the interview goes well. And then I'm like, okay, I think I have a lot of information about this organization and what they do. Now I sort of want more background info, like, okay, so how did the situation of the housing conditions get to this point in the first place? What is the government trying to do? And that's what I want to figure out. The next person I wanted to interview for the piece was Counselor Jean Swanson, who is the sort of counselor that is the biggest advocate of improving these housing conditions. And so I hit her up, same way, find her email, and then I go, hey, I pretty much copy pasted the email. You know, copy paste is a journalist's best friend, right? So I go, hey, I'm working on this piece. Would you be available for an interview? Jean Swanson is awesome. She goes, yep, I'm good right now. And then give me your phone number. I call her, do the interview, goes great. Now I sort of feel like I have enough information to write the piece. Okay, and so I do the thing, you know, I write the piece, blah, blah, blah. I had the piece that oh, so it's right here. So this is my first draft, right? It's pretty bare bones. You can see right here, I don't like these little tiny footnotes. Sometimes when you're working on something that has a lot of facts, you want to make it easier for whoever's reading it and just and you know, footnote all your facts. Actually, I didn't show you what these footnotes actually point to, so I'll share that with you guys as well. I'll share that with you guys in a bit, but anyway, so I submit the piece, and then I submit it to Tara Michelle. So you can see, hi Tara Michelle, I'm filing the story. Attached is the draft and my interviews, blah, blah, blah. And then a couple of days later, she responds being like, hey, I've edited. So as much as we writers would like to just submit something to our editors and then just have it published right away, it never works like that, right? You will always just get the thing back with a whole bunch of edits, and yeah, it's you just gotta roll with the punches. You gotta take it. You gotta make sure you don't take it personally, right? Even if there's a crazy amount of edits to have to deal with. This piece in particular, actually, she was kind of hands off. So I'll show you what her edited version looks like. So I send it to her, she sends it back, and this is what it looks like, right? So yeah, she has a bunch of like little tiny edits, and look how much on the right side here. Look how many questions she has, you know. And I consider myself like a decent journalist. I'm okay, I think, but you know, she hits you with like, hey, have you done this? You know, clarify this. I find this awkward. And just know, all these edits are not an indictment of your writing or your journalism skills or anything like that. It's just an editor wants to know certain things, and if he or she feels like you haven't hit those things, then they'll just let you know, right? So yeah, you'll get a bunch of like, add a line, we can't use this, what can you expand, all that, right? And so so when you get that draft back, you just tell her, okay, I'll fix that, and then you address every little thing she wants, and then if you're lucky, you only go through one round of edits. On a typical basis, you'll actually go through several rounds of edits. This one, like I said, Tara Michelle was really hands-off with this piece, fortunately for me. And so pretty soon after, she sends me proofs. So whenever you write something, before it gets published, they'll send you a proof, right? Which just means they'll send you, here's like the magazine before it's printed, just make sure, you know, we spelled your name right. Just give it one final read over, and that's like the best part. Like when you get the thing in print form, and you see your name and the thing you've worked on in the magazine. So that's sort of how it goes. So it's going to be pretty much the exact same way, right? Like you guys are going to submit your first draft. I'm going to look at it. I'm going to hit you with a whole bunch of edits, give it back to you. hopefully you fix those edits, and then maybe I'll find more edits, and then do like, you know, anywhere between 1 to 10 rounds of editing. It's not going to be 10, don't worry. But yeah, so the point of this is you shouldn't expect it to be perfect in the first try. And also, even if you get a piece back with a whole bunch of edits, it doesn't have anything to do with your journalism skills. It's just how it goes, right? And just to really hammer in that point, I'll show you another piece that I wrote for Toronto Life with an ungodly amount of things that I needed to fix. All right. So here it is. Everything underlined is the editor telling me to change things. And that, you know, and you see this and you're like, oh my God, like I really screwed up here, didn't I? Like this person thinks I'm a total moron. Like I can't, you know, string a sentence together. But, you know, but you just got to hunker down, just fix every single thing one at a time, and then the piece will be good. Like, yeah, I promise you, I won't edit your pieces this hard, but sort of, you know, this is kind of the sign of a really great editor, you know, like they are really detail oriented and they're not going to let any little thing slip by them. So yeah, this piece was like 4 pages long. Every single one of the 4 pages looked exactly like this, like underlines everywhere, corrections, edits, changes I have to make. You know, and it hurts your feelings at first, but you sort of gotta shake it off. So does anybody have any questions about sort of the filing and editing process?
So should we just send you our projects over Zoom? Over Canvas? Is there going to be like a place to upload our first drafts and we'll just be communicating through there?
Yeah, I find it actually best to do it by email, just because I know email notifications pop up on my devices immediately, whereas
and
Canvas, it takes like
that on Canvas.
Yeah. If you guys could actually just email me your drafts, right? Just attach your drafts in an email. I'll make sure you guys all have my email. I'll put it in the chat right now. But yeah, just email me your drafts.
Is there any time we should have that done by? Like, what's our deadline here?
So I'm really hoping you guys have your drafts in, your first draft in like Wednesday next week, if possible. So if you're, yeah, so I know you guys should have made progress on, you know, getting your sources and, you know, should have sort of the writing techniques down by now. So hopefully you guys will have it Wednesday. The following week, I'll really go through the edits.
Okay, so
I know,
first draft due Wednesday.
Yeah, so I know our program technically really ends tomorrow, but you know, I would really appreciate your persistence with this even after the deadline is over, so we can get your pieces out in our magazine.
I just wanted to add, so Lucas is working as an editor-in-chief, and once the final proof is done, we will create magazine and publish the print as well. So I will be making a real magazine and sending that to you by mail to you guys as a token.
Oh, that's so cool. Okay.
Yeah, so the sooner you guys have your drafts in, the more time it gives me to sort of go over all the facts, make sure everything is right, do some copy edits, and get it back to you, and then, you know, we can start the back and forth editing process. But yeah, so if you guys could really aim for Wednesday, that would be much appreciated. Some of you have more work than others. Like I said, the more narrow your focus, the easier sort of your writing process should be. But, and I promise I won't edit yours the way you saw just now. That's kind of insane. And like, it'll take us like years to get through all those edits. But anyway, so that's just sort of what the filing and editing process, we'll communicate over email. When you send off that email, just title it filing my piece, and then I'll know exactly what you're talking about. but yeah, it doesn't really matter what you write it in, Google Docs, Microsoft Word, whatever, as long as you don't send it as a PDF, because PDFs are kind of a pain to work with. That's good. But yeah, so that's sort of how the editing process will look. I won't be, I'll try my best not to be so like, intimidating as an editor. I know I have problems with that. Like editors come back to me and like I get petrified at their criticism and things like that. But
Because how do we decide the topic? But about what should we?
Oh, that's totally up to you. Just whatever social issue is closest to your heart, that's what I encourage you to write about. If you haven't already, take a look at Module 1 for Flaps 101, and that'll go through like all the parameters of what you can sort of create. Are there any other questions about the filing and editing process? All right, cool. So if you don't have any other questions, I'll just move on to the next part, which I just want to talk to you guys about our style guide and sourcing and plagiarism. All right, so I'm going to reshare my screen. Okay, so based on sort of the things that we talked about and the things that you guys submitted in that second module's assignment, I've sort of compiled a list of, sort of writing rules that we're going to follow for our pieces. A couple of these are sort of grammatical, and this will all be caught in copy editing, so they're not as strict, stuff like, 35-year-old. That's how you should write something year-old every time. I go through this. This is in Module 2, the video for Module 2, but 0 to 9 we'll write out with actual digits. 10 plus becomes, we'll write out with letters, and then 10 plus we'll write out with actual digits, right? So you don't want to type out 100, HUNDRED or anything, but with but for only big numbers, so 10 plus, you'll use digits. The important things, like the things that I really want you guys to keep in mind with our style guide. So I know a lot of us are writing about civil rights and talking about specific communities, things like that. Just like the Canadian press does now, Black capitalized when you're talking about the communities and the peoples involved. Keep it lowercase when you're talking about just the color. Indigenous. Indigenous is preferable to Aboriginal. It's preferable to Native. So you don't want to call the peoples Native, you want to call them Indigenous. But if you're talking about the sort of the act of being native to somewhere, then you should definitely use the word native. Keep it lowercase. It's a bit of a more abstract concept, but just remember, like, whenever you're describing a people by their identity, chances are you're going to capitalize the first letter of that word, right? So if you're talking about some peoples that are indigenous, capitalize the I. Asian, capitalize the A. Black, capitalize the B. And white, capitalize the W. Next thing is Latinx, right? It's sort of the common way to be doing, talking about the Latinx community right now. Latino is sort of gendered, the word Latino actually doesn't point to half the Latinx people, which are women. So that's why we don't use Latino commonly anymore. And brown, this is something you see a lot in the United States, right? So if you ever watch CNN, they'll always talk about black or brown people, and they'll be talking about, like the Latinx community. That, like, you never see that in Canada, and so we won't do that either. Brown in Canada has a much more varied, is much more varied as a descriptor. So yeah, that's why we're going with Latinx. Does anybody have any sort of questions about, or questions or concerns? I'm very interested in if you have any concerns with sort of these rules that I've just laid out. These are just based on sort of the things you guys talked about in your module 2 assignment.
For brown, like in Canada, because I'm like half brown, my dad is from India, I think it's acceptable to use that kind of term, but like for Latinx people, it's kind of like, it doesn't really mean like, I wouldn't say like, it doesn't really mean like Latinx, it means more like South Asian people, you know what I mean?
Right, yeah. So yeah, that's exactly right. And that's why for us, it'll be confusing to use brown because, you know, our readers are probably based more in Canada than the US. And so using brown to describe the Latinx community, it wouldn't really, it wouldn't be conducive to sort of the simplicity that we're trying to go for with our language.
Yeah.
Another thing that you guys will actually need to really keep a sharp focus on is sourcing. And this is how we get into, okay, is my piece plagiarism or is it not, right? So I wanted to talk to you guys about a little bit about the difference between academic plagiarism and journalistic plagiarism. So can I get a show of hands? Who's like had teachers talk to them about academic plagiarism? Okay, can you guys, okay, so what did they tell you? So, like, Sophia, what do you remember what your teachers tell you about academic plagiarism?
To not do it. Also, they showed us a video that kind of told us what it was and how it's considered cheating.
Right. So yeah, but like what constitutes plagiarism? Like what do you have to do for something to be plagiarism?
It's like taking someone else's idea and pretending it's your own idea by like not citing them.
Right. Yeah. So that's exactly right. And journalistic plagiarism is pretty much exactly the same. Like you don't want to present a new idea and impose it as your own. The big difference between academic and journalistic plagiarism is that in academic plagiarism, it's a lot more strict on what it means to properly source something, right? I don't know if you guys have to do this as much. I know, like, Marina, you probably have to do it all the time, but you know, if you get a fact or something from somewhere, you have to, you know, maybe MLA or APA style, you have to, you know, bracket, it comes from this source, you know, in-text citations or footnotes or bibliographies. You need to source in a very strict way, right? In journalism, you don't source that way. We don't use APA or MLA format. We don't do in-text citations or anything like that. Journalistic plagiarism is a lot more loose, right? And so in that way, as long as you're attributing your fact to something else, you'll be fine. Like you don't have to follow strict rules of attribution, as long as you're not lying about where you're getting your information from, you'll be fine. So I want you guys to take a look at this part right here that I've highlighted. So a common mistake I see a lot is using according to and talking about a person, right? In journalism, that's not really a thing. Like you can't say like according to Lucas or according to Kieran or according to Rachel, even though you would use it, you know, when you're talking to someone that way, like the phrase according to that way. you don't really use it that way in journalism. You pretty much stick to says, right? Because people say things, people don't accord to things, right? According to should be used sort of exclusively for citing statistics and raw data. And so I have an example. This was part of the readings. This is Laurie Penny's Life Hacks of the Poor and Aimless. I had you guys read that really early on, and I keep coming back to it. And I'm sorry about that. It might be kind of monotonous seeing this page so many times, but all the things that I'm talking about are exactly here, right? So the thesis, right, of her piece, actually, she didn't just make it up, right? This is not this is a personal essay, but, oh, sorry, not a personal essay. This is like a political essay, but the thesis that she's sort of presenting here comes from Carl Cederstrom and Andre Spicer, and she attributes to them accordingly, right? So, even though she's citing this book by these two authors, she doesn't use, MLA style or APA style to cite anything. She just says, this is what they're saying, right? And that's really all it takes in journalism for it not to be plagiarism. It's just honesty about where you're getting your information from. And like I said about using according to, you can see it right here. According to a study in the Medical Humanities Journal. So like I said, according to is best used for academic studies and statistics and raw data, and not talking about certain people. But that's sort of like the more technical aspect of attribution. What I really want you guys to keep in mind is that if you're getting information from somewhere, just make sure where you're getting it from is in the article itself, right? Whoever's reading your piece should know where your facts are coming from so that they can come up with their conclusions about that fact that you've written, So, you could write the top 1% own 92% of the stocks in the stock market, even though that's an accurate fact, you still want to attribute that. So you want to say, according to this study, or says this guy. And that's really all it takes for you to avoid journalistic plagiarism. And that's about how strict we're going to be when it comes to asking you guys where you got your information from. All I'm going to ask is, where did you get it from? And is that source written out in your work, in the content of your work? So that's really all it takes not to plagiarize. Does anybody have any questions about plagiarism and sourcing?
I have a question. Mm-hmm. So in academia, you obviously at the end, you'll always have a works cited. In journalism, is it, so if you mention something, there's no need to ever have a works cited? Or I know often in, like online at least, people will kind of just link stuff via hyperlinks. Is that strict or like kind of enough in journalism? Or, I mean, would you always, when you're writing an article, would you always keep like a works cited that you wouldn't actually publish?
No, I don't keep a works cited. We can't do hyperlinks are great if your piece is only online, right? But if your piece is going to be printed, then we can't do hyperlinks, right? So I'll show you guys exactly what I mean. I'll use that downtown East Side piece that I was talking about at the top of the session as an example of what I do when I'm sourcing my information. All right. So here you can see like bathtubs were rendered unusable by the jagged shards of a fallen ceiling and the crapshoot that was the building's plumbing. So that's a fact. that I put in there. And then I annotate it with 1, and then whoever's editing it can go down to the 1, right? And see that I have a link to where I got that information from. In this case, I got it from a site that has photos, right? So I provided photographic evidence of where I got that information from. The next thing I write is the West Hotel is one of downtown Eastside's many SROs. And that's a very basic fact, but even that I have to cite, right? And I have that written out in a 2, and I say, it's right here. Mentioned here, the Globe and Mail talks about how the West Hotel is a downtown Eastside SRO. You might notice that I got this information from the Globe and Mail, and I don't say here that I got this information from the Globe and Mail. And you might be thinking, hey, isn't that kind of hypocritical as to what you just said earlier, like a couple minutes back? And the answer is yes. And that's why when I sent it off to my editor asks me, where the hell did you get this information from? I'll show you where. I think she tells me that in an email. Yeah, and then I'll show you, hold on, I'll show you guys what she says about it in a second, right? So, yeah, so after I sent what I just showed you guys, she was like, there's a lot of stuff here that you've sourced for fact checkers, but readers aren't hearing where the info comes from. So that's basically her telling me, you screwed up. You got your information from certain sources, but you haven't listed where those sources are in the piece. Next file, do that. And so I did. And so, yeah, that's sort of a real life example of how to properly source something. And really what happens when you mess up, all your editor is going to tell you is, yeah, just fix that. So making mistakes isn't the end of the world. Just fix them. Unfortunately, I've gone over my allotted time, and I really haven't left much room for interaction. I apologize for that. A lot of things to go over in our last session. Really appreciate you guys sticking with this entire thing. Your pieces are going to come out great. Just let me know by email or through Canvas if you guys have any issues or you guys need any guidance for your piece whatsoever.
Yeah, thank you, Lucas. Thank you so much. That was very interesting. I believe because we're running just a little bit behind, we will take the quickest of quick breaks, enough for someone like myself to run to the next room and grab a glass of water. We will see you back here at 2:03 p.m. Vancouver time. And while you're, if you choose not to leave your chair, you can say hello to Keiko's nice cat.
Hi, Rachel.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Good. Let me see what I have around here. I do have my iPad. Okay, no, I have my sketchbook right here, if you want to see it. Hold on for a sec.
Okay.
Hold on, I just need to talk to Eric real quick. Okay, so the link for the software is you just take it as private.
Yeah, Rachel, do you just want to explain that?
For sure.
Right now.
So,
yeah, I just want everyone's back, and then Kieran, and then you.
yeah, so I'll get like, yeah, me and Kieran, since we're kind of coordinate this together, we can both.
Sounds good.
Yeah. If that's cool.
Is everybody back? Do we get a thumbs up from everybody that's here? Awesome. Yeah, it looks like everybody's back. All right. I think just briefly, Rachel's going to talk and give some important information.
Yeah, I just posted a link to a software in the chat. I would love for you all, if possible, to download it. It's available for PC and for Mac, and it's just going to tie into the activity I want to do today. But as a precursor, you'll be creating something with Kieran, and then I'll be taking it over. So, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, so if everyone sees that link, and just while Kieran's doing his presentation, you might want to just click on that, let it download, and let it install in the background while we do our Zoom call. So if everyone's got that, I think Kieran.
Yes. Yeah, so today I just kind of want to very briefly talk about disaster preparedness and resilience, but then just spend most of the time on the activity that will then lead into Rachel's activity. So, just going to figure this out. Okay. Oops, no, not sharing. What is happening here? Sorry, let me just figure out what I just did. Okay, there we go. All right, so, okay, so I mean, here are some examples of some pretty devastating disasters, and while I hope that none of us have to deal with a disaster like an earthquake or a forest fire or a flood or a drought, the pandemic is obviously something that has impacted all of our lives, and if you're considering some of these here, it's really added another layer to global disasters, which are currently happening as well. And so while these events are, traumatic and they do cause widespread pain, and it is impossible to completely eliminate consequences, being prepared for events can really lead to much better outcomes and better resilience for the future. Keiko, I don't know how you're staying focused with that cat walking all over the desk. So how we kind of respond to difficult situations and disasters is really key. So resilience is the ability to prepare and plan for, absorb, recover from, and more successfully adapt to adverse events. Enhanced resilience allows better anticipation of disasters and better planning to reduce disaster losses. So rather than waiting for an event to occur and paying it forward. So this can exist at a national or kind of citywide level, but it can also exist at a very individual level, and it's an individual characteristic as well. So, you know, being resilient and preparing for disaster can be the difference between kind of waiting for help or being proactive and taking your health and safety into your own hands. So I talk more about preparedness in the module, but here I just want to talk about a couple of just people responding or response to disasters. And so resilience is really key. It's about how we are able to respond to these extreme situations. It takes many forms. So this example, let me know if you can hear it. Just give me a thumbs up. I'm just going to start it, but it's an example of resilience playing out at just an individual level, and a woman taking an extremely devastating situation, and her response is kind of important in catalyzing conversations and change. Okay, I'm just going to let this play. Oops. Can you hear?
I can't hear.
No. Okay. Oh yeah, I found it. Right.
Hi, I'm Kristen Urquiza. I'm one of the many who has lost a loved one to COVID. My dad, Mark Anthony Urquiza, should be here today, but he isn't. He had faith in Donald Trump. He voted for him, listened to him, believed him and his mouthpieces when they said that coronavirus was under control and going to disappear, that it was okay to end social distancing rules before it was safe, and that if you had no underlying health conditions, you'd probably be fine. So in late May, after the stay-at-home order was lifted in Arizona, my dad went to a karaoke bar with his friends. A few weeks later, he was put on a ventilator, and after 5 agonizing days, he died alone in the ICU with a nurse holding his hand. My dad was a healthy 65-year-old. His only pre-existing condition was trusting Donald Trump, and for that, he paid with his life. I am not alone. Once I told my story, a lot of people reached out to me to share theirs. They asked me to help them keep their communities safe, especially communities of color, which have been disproportionately affected. They asked me, a normal person, to help because Donald Trump won't. The coronavirus has made it clear that there are 2 Americas: the America that Donald Trump lives in and the America that my father died in. Enough is enough. Donald Trump may not have caused the coronavirus, but his dishonesty and his irresponsible actions made it so much worse. We need a leader who has a national, coordinated, data-driven response to stop this pandemic from claiming more lives and to safely reopen the country. We need a leader who will step in on day one and do his job, to care. One of the last things that my father said to me was that he felt betrayed by the likes of Donald Trump. And so when I cast my vote for Joe Biden, I will do it for my dad.
So this is Miss Urquiza responding at the DNC, I think a couple of days ago. I mean, it's obviously very partisan and very directed, but I think it's a pretty good example of showing resilience and responding, using anger and sadness and really channeling it into kind of like a pointed action. And here, obviously, it's kind of the condemnation of Trump's actions in minimizing the severity of the virus, which it led to her father's death, and she's urging people to vote for Biden, how she will herself. So I think this is a really good example of responding to tragedy and kind of using it as a catalyst to move forward and think of future events and how that how to prevent and be prepared for the next kind of natural disaster or pandemic or whatever it may be, you know. So just want to go to this next example. So this is in Bangladesh. Bangladesh is a country that's really heavily affected by extreme climate events, and it's really worsened by you know, the climate crisis and global warming. So the coronavirus has really been seen to add another dimension to these already really complicated disasters. And in this case, so there's been kind of really intense torrential rains. Sea levels have been rising because of kind of melting ice caps, and floods have this actually submerged the 40 is under. So this people's homes, villages, washing away animals, and really just been like incredibly devastating to a huge amount of people. People have been unable to move, like mobility is very restricted because of it. And it's kind of exposed a very fragile and unequal economy and weaknesses in disaster response actually in the country, and also the changing realities that we're facing with global warming. And in this case, the coronavirus. So in this case, flooding is a very normal occurrence, but normally people will be able to prepare and work and kind of have enough food and money saved up. But because of COVID, they've been kind of they've been a bit at a loss. And they have donated money. There's less financial aid coming from other places. People are really having a tough time. So I just wanted to use this to illustrate kind of the connections between COVID and disasters. And then I just want to, just because I think this activity will be fun, I want to just move on, just keep this in mind. So like, I just think that because of all the interconnections and the interrelations between these disasters and COVID, and because, you know, the face mask has become, can you hear me? Sorry, I think I was maybe covering my speakers. Okay, but because the medical face mask has become such a symbol of COVID, I think that it would be fun to design a medical face mask, each of us, that symbolizes the interconnections between the disasters and the coronavirus. So I want everyone, and this is going to be the part that is used in Rachel's activity as well. So I want everyone to kind of choose a disaster that has happened during the pandemic. So this could be the forest fires in California. It could be, you know, flooding as example here, or in Japan, or something like the explosion in Beirut. So I want kind of people to consider how COVID has complicated all of the events, people's responses to the events, and how they're all connected. And here, ideally, if people have design software, we could use design software, but I know not everyone will have that. So if you want to kind of design something on a piece of paper, make a very quick collage or something, just to whatever means you would like to, or medium you'd like to use, just create a mask that symbolizes the interconnections, the challenges, and maybe opportunities that could be kind of tied to resilience and response. So I think maybe take about 10 or 12 minutes on this, and then we'll come back. Just kind of similar to how we ended off the session yesterday in Rachel's. We'll come back. Does anyone have any questions? Straightforward. And if you are using something like a digital design program, it's super easy to just Google like plain white face mask or whatever, and it's pretty easy to make something with that.
Also, I have a template if you guys just want a generic like illustrated face mask as well. I can drop it in the chat.
That'd be great.
That would be appreciated, yeah.
Yes. Thanks. So let's take maybe like 3 more minutes and then come back. All right, how's everyone feeling with their designs?
It's in pretty rough shape, but that's because I made it on my phone and it's kind of just like a concept.
Right.
I can
right.
share it.
Yeah, I'd love to see what you did.
Okay. I don't know how this is gonna work because I did it on my phone, so I'm gonna have to like just hold that up to my webcam. But I found a mask template and I just kind of put a picture of a forest fire on top of it, and then I wrote "We are suffocating," which is backwards because it's because of webcams. But yeah, no, double meaning because I was up in Kelowna during its really bad wildfire season and you really cannot breathe. And you know how it is with ventilators and COVID, you also can't breathe there. So yeah, basically we are suffocating and that's where we are, unfortunately. Yeah.
No, that's really great. And also I applaud you in the 10 minutes or whatever. It looks fantastic. And on the
Thank you. Yeah, I did a really rough job on the masking, but like I guess that's again it's just a concept, you know?
Right, exactly. Does anyone else have any?
Can I go? I'll just turn on my camera.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so mine's even rougher than Alex's. It's also about the same thing, like the forest fires and stuff like that. So as you can see, like the atmosphere around the trees is very red, which is like what the air looks like during a forest fire. And then there's trees and they're on fire. Yeah, I know I'm great at art. I just used my finger. I didn't have a piece of paper handy. But yeah, because it isn't just like the forest fires in BC, it's also in California, the ones out in Australia earlier this year.
Yeah, the bushfires. Like there have just been a lot of wildfires these past few years.
Yeah, there has. I think it has something to do with global warming.
You think so?
I was being sarcastic. Yeah, so that was my design.
Yeah, no, that's sweet. Would anyone else like to? And just kind of, I just think that this is kind of like an interesting little exercise. I mean, as I was kind of thinking about it, I thought that, you know, this in itself could kind of show a form of resilience and a form of kind of a way to respond to things. Like I thought that maybe this could even if someone was really interested by this idea, someone could move forward and actually design masks and release masks and try to sell them with profits going towards some of these causes, you know. Just some, maybe not. I'm not sure what the logistics on that would be, but it's kind of an interesting little idea. Does anyone else have another one they'd like to show?
I can show. Mine is pretty straightforward. I wish I could use the technology, but just can you see?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
Kind of embroidery, you know.
Yeah.
That's
rad. I like that.
I can show you guys mine.
Yes, please.
All right. Don't know if you guys noticed, but these right here, these are like the locusts, right? I don't know if you got, like, there was that news story earlier this year with like the locusts ravaging Africa and like Africa's sort of all the farms in Africa, right? So I've got these locusts flying towards the nose, right? Really causing harm. And I have an upside down Africa to create like the letter L, right? Because Africa has been really negatively affected by it, right? And then you've got the straps that are supported by these communication networks that, you know, sort of ignore the issues happening abroad, right? So it's Trump and Biden and CNN and Facebook and Twitter that are holding up, you know, that are sort of allowing for this negativity to happen in terms of the locusts.
Really cool. Well thought out.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll have more time to share kind of. I just want to maybe let Rachel explain what she wants to do with this idea as well.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so like with this idea, I would love it if you guys would just all upload your masks into the chat. And I'm going to teach you all how to make it into an actual filter, like a face filter that you would use on Snapchat and stuff. So I just thought it would be cool. If you guys were able to download the actual software that I provided, you can follow along. I knew that there were like forgot about because I've had it on my laptop for months. So you need a Facebook login. If you don't, you can just.
And I thought that if anyone who kind of drew on paper, feel free to use someone else's mask just to follow along, or I'll put mine in the chat as well. So if anyone does need a copy, mine is also not great. So maybe you'll want to use a better one.
Yeah, this may be a little bit quick. Was anyone able to download the software successfully? Eric?
I did.
Andy?
Yeah, I did.
Was anyone able to gain access to the actual interface?
Yep, there's a guy making some
Okay.
head movement.
Is anyone on that page where it's like a guy kind of like moving his face around?
Not yet. But I have it in my applications.
Okay. So for the actual thing, let me just start a new. Let me just share my screen.
Eric, I like your mask.
Thank you.
Yeah, let me use Eric's mask as a sample. Okay. So you can all just watch, enjoy. So the cool thing about this is that you can literally draw whatever you want and apply it to someone's face as a filter. So there's a lot of interesting technical things on this interface, but I followed a close tutorial and it was actually really easy to master. So what I got here is so basically here, this is like your scene tab, and the scene tab kind of like controls the distance of the filter, the lighting of the filter, and like the placement of the filter as well. So the cool thing here is that you can actually like access different faces so that you can be able to see how your filter will look like on different skin tones, with the presence of hair, without hair, and with people with beards as well. So it's super cool. So what I'm gonna do here is go to the cameras part, and I'm gonna go to the FaceTime HD camera so that the filter will be on my face as opposed to these other folks, just so that I can get a better idea of how it'll look on me. So now that we have it on my face, I'm going to go to Add Object. And with Add Object, you can add a number of different things. So I'm going to be using Face Tracker because I need something that needs to track my face, obviously. Plane Tracker is if your filter is going to have like an object. So let's say you're using not your selfie camera, but your face fronting camera, and it's going to be like, you're going to create something that's like moving, like a GIF or something like that. That's for the Plane Tracker. But for this, it's going to be my face. So it's a Face Tracker. So I'm going to go towards down here towards 3D objects, and I'm going to go to Face Mesh. So once I hit Face Mesh, I'm going to hit Insert. And this is what my face is going to look like. And it's going to be really weird. So with this, you can basically like copy and paste whatever artwork that you want onto this mesh in particular. So with this, I'm going to sorry, so with this, I'm going to take the mask let me go with Eric's mask because it looks cool. And I'm gonna drag it and drop it here in the assets panel. So now I have Eric's mask here, and it's not showing up on my face yet. And that's just because I need to basically put it on top of my face mesh. So what I'm going to do is go to materials down here. Materials means like whether it's materials or a piece of art. So I'm trying to call on Eric's mask to put on my face. So I'm gonna click plus here. And now my face is going to look like this, which is really weird. So there's just another additional step. So you click on the materials over here, and then I'm gonna head to textures. So next to textures, it says choose file. And that's when I'm actually gonna call on the mask. It's an arbitrary step, but this is just how Zuckerberg created it. So then I'm gonna click on Eric's mask. I'm gonna press open. Okay, so now Eric's mask is my entire face, which is pretty funny, but not necessarily what I want.
That's really freaky.
Yeah, I know, right? So I'm gonna head back to, so basically what I need to do is just morph this piece of work into an actual mask. So I'm going to turn off the eye option. So I'm gonna go back to my face mesh and turn off the eye option. So over here, it will completely cover my eyes. So this thing is gonna be my entire face. Also, typically with face masks, unless you're in America, they don't have mouthpieces. So we're gonna turn that off as well. And after this, we're going to just start transforming our mask. So in this top little bar over here, there's a few options towards transforming this mask to make it actually into a mask shape. So what I'm going to do, is hit this little square button over here. And if you hover, it says edit the scale of the selected object or objects. So I'm gonna hit that. And I should be able to start moving my mask up and down accordingly. So I'm constricting it a little bit because obviously face masks don't cover your entire face, just your mouth. And then I'm going to change the position and move it down a little bit. So I'm gonna hit the arrow at the top, and that kind of manipulates the, is that the x-axis? Yes, I think. Don't quote me on that. So I'm gonna move that down a little bit. And the weird thing about this is that it still has the shape of my face on it, which isn't that great. So what I'm going to do is go back to the materials, which is basically the shape and the indent of the eyes, the mouth, and the nose, and go to shader type. And shader type just controls the way the mask blends. So if you're doing a full face mask, you can keep it standard, but if you're just doing like a regular mask and you just want the artwork to show and no form of definition, you're just gonna hit flat. Okay, so I've hit flat, and now I have a mask. It's actually pretty cool. But yeah.
Yeah, that is cool.
Thanks. I don't know if Eric can see it, but yeah, this is your mask. But yeah, I just found it cool to have an interactive way where we all can share our art without it being like only, let's say if you're just like drawing on a piece of paper or drawing somewhere else, it's like, it's really cool to have like something really interactive and fun that you could use. I wish everyone had access to this, but like if you do want to go, or like if you do want to download it, it is there and it is free as well. And I'll just stop sharing my screen. But yeah, that was just a little activity that I wanted to do with you guys. I do have a little thing that I would like to walk you guys through in terms of like design principles and stuff. You can apply these design principles towards the project that I want you to do, which involves making the piece of art around the social issue you're interested in. These are just standard design principles that can really help you ground yourself, that you can really ground yourself visually in. Let me just share that once again. Oops. Before I did want you guys to use the specific I provided on this, but you can also use Canva as well. It's a really awesome interface and it's very easy to use. So I found this little post on Canva that just illustrates the 20 most important design principles, like line, how you can use line to guide people's line of sight. Scale is really important as well. And you can play around with scale with like the images, with the text that you'll be using. Also feel free, obviously, to play around with color. There's a lot of great, you can create a little color palette. So whether you want to do like an analogous color palette or a monochrome or anything of the sort, that is an option. Also repetition, not necessarily my favorite, but if you want to use something that like mimics a pattern, you can use that as well. Negative space is really cool. So you can like make a lot of cool optical illusions, really great for iconography and logos and stuff like that. And symmetry, it's good to, if you're using like, if you're creating a post that just has one image on it and no extra text whatsoever, having a symmetrical image does garner a lot of attention. Texture as well. I think humans are very tactile humans, so they like things that look like they can touch them. So texture is also a good thing to play with as well. Transparency, online, not so much. It's just like, if you want people to be able to read and to see things properly, it would probably be best to stay away from transparency, but you can also play around with that as well. Balance, very similar to scale as well. Balance is a good way to guide the human eye towards the type of flow you want your design to assume. Hierarchy, super important, probably one of the most important things to include. Where does the eye go to first when you first see something? Always keep that in mind. It's good to have balance, but it's also good to have, like, you can have balance and hierarchy at the same time. Framing, I think it's good if you want to create a certain aesthetic of something in an enclosed space. That's a cool thing you can play around with. Contrast, super important. Similar to transparency, you don't want something to be like, you know, like 10% opacity or like 15% or something like really low, because you want to be as inclusive as possible, because not everybody can view certain things as vividly as others. So increasing opacity and increasing contrast are the best things that you can do. And it also helps create like drama and stuff like that. This one's a bit too technical. I'll skip this. Randomness. Randomness is really cool if you know how to use it well. If you guys do want to play around with this concept, pass it by me first, and I can like yay or nay it, or just help you around with it. But it is a really cool concept, especially if you're going to be working with text in particular. So if you have like image and text and have them kind of like work around each other, that's a really cool thing. Similar to what I was saying before, when I was mentioning the flow of information, you need to have a strong sense of direction. So you need to tell the reader, like, or the viewer, like, this is where you're looking first, and then I want you to go here, and then I want you to go here. It's kind of like a maze. Movement in particular, it does help bring some type of like dynamicism to your work. If you know how to work with it, I would definitely, if you're interested in working with it, I would encourage you to look more into it. Not necessarily important for creating like socially aware social media posts, but it is a cool design element to include. Depth, I think depth is really important, especially if you're going to be displaying statistics in your work. If you want to do like a pie chart, or if you want to do like a graph bar, adding depth is a really cool design element. And it helps make the work a little bit more dynamic as well. Composition, definitely one of the most important things. It's just, how do you bring in all these elements together to make it into a very succinct and digestible piece of design. So this is, composition is basically bringing in all of these elements and putting them in together. In typography, people sleep on it a lot, but it is very important. Some fonts are way more easier to read than other fonts. If you have a certain aesthetic theme that you want to carry off with your artwork, or your design work, whether it's like, I don't know, something a little bit more retro or something a bit more current and minimal, think about the typography that would fall in line with those certain aesthetics. And yes, this was published by the Design School of Canva. I can drop this in Canvas as well, in case you guys want to use this for reference. But yeah, it was short, but that's all I have for today. So I'll pass this back to Eric.
Thank you, Rachel. That was really fun. That was so cool. I didn't even know you could do that. That was amazing. If you guys want to put your masks up on Canvas, we still have that art sharing discussion up from yesterday. So yeah, if you want to share your mask there or talk about the masks that other people in FLAP has made, feel free to. That would be really cool. I'd love to see that. Today, this is the end of our final FLAP lesson. That's it. Tomorrow is all fun and celebration. I hope it's been fun for you guys. I hope you've learned a lot. I certainly have. Before we go today, we might end a few minutes early. We're a little bit lucky. We'd like to share the Art as Activism course at Stanford, because, well, today is our last sort of FLAPS learning sessions for us. That doesn't mean that you can't continue learning online about art and art as activism and social artistry. And it's a really cool program. It's run by Stanford University. You've got to apply by August 28th, but after that, I believe it's free. But they're only accepting 30 students, and that's anybody from graduate students, undergraduate students, fellows, and even postdoctoral students. So for those of you who are in university, this is a really, really, really cool program, and we hope that you'll apply for it, and even more so, we hope that you'll be accepted. So we'll have a link for that in our email that goes out today, and we'll put it on Canvas as well. But if you'd like to continue your learning beyond FLAP, it's a really cool program.
And thanks, Mandy, for finding about that program. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mandy.
Yeah, no problem. I'm not completely sure if it's open to all students, so just do your research and hopefully it is.
Yeah. So just before we end, as always, it's been amazing seeing you all. We do have another meeting tomorrow, same time, 1 to 3. And it's going to be a nice sort of wrap up of the whole program. We'll be doing a little bit of review. It should hopefully be fun. And we will present you your certificates. All in all, it should be a very fun day. But yeah, thank you everybody for being here, unless anybody has any final words. I think that concludes our final FLAP live learning session. It has been so amazing to do this with all of you. Thank you all so much.
See you everyone tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.